Ever pull out your phone, connect to your car's Bluetooth, and just wonder where that name came from?
Yeah.
Well,
Are you?
buckle up, because today we're diving straight into the heart of Viking history,
Oh, wow.
to the Jelling stones in Denmark.
Okay.
We'll be talking about kings and queens, power struggles,
Uh-huh.
and maybe even a bit of historical revisionism. We're
Interesting.
talking rune stones, those massive carved stones that Vikings used
Right.
to record, well, everything from boasts to memorials.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that these particular runestones might be telling us a story that's more complicated than we initially thought. They offer a glimpse into a time when Denmark was newly unified and power dynamics were constantly shifting.
Okay, so let's set the stage. We're talking 10th century Denmark. What was life like back then?
Well, imagine a world where power was constantly being negotiated, alliances shifting, and families vying for control. This was a time when Denmark was emerging as a unified nation, but the idea of a single king ruling over the entire land was still relatively new.
And that's where our main players come in. King Gorm the Old, his wife Queen Thyra, and their son, Harold Bluetooth. What do we know about them?
Gorm the Old is often considered the first true king of Denmark. He's credited with uniting a large portion of the land, laying the foundation for the kingdom we know today.
Right.
But even his story is shrouded in some mystery. We're not even certain of his birth date.
So we're already dealing with gaps in the historical record. What about Queen Thyra? What kind of woman was she?
Thyra is an intriguing figure. We know even less about her origins.
Ah,
Some historians believe she may have been English, but what's clear is that she was a powerful woman in her own right. There's this legend about Gorm promising her all of Denmark as a mourning gift.
hold on. A mourning gift. What exactly does that mean?
It wasn't quite as straightforward as it sounds.
Right.
A mourning gift was a kind of inheritance that a wife would receive from her husband upon his death. It wasn't like she suddenly gained control of the kingdom, but it did ensure her financial security and influence.
Ah, so it's more about securing her position within the family and the kingdom.
Yes.
Smart move for Gorm, keeps the peace in the marriage, and ensures his heir inherits everything smoothly. Speaking of heirs, what about Harold Bluetooth? He's the one we know from the technology, but what was his story?
Harold Bluetooth is a pivotal figure in Danish history.
Okay.
He succeeded his father, Gorm,
Yeah.
and is known for leading Denmark's conversion to Christianity. But
Right.
even that transition is debated.
Love it.
Some accounts say he was forced into it after losing a battle, while others suggest it was a genuine spiritual evolution.
So lots of unknowns and conflicting accounts. It sounds like the historical record is a bit of a puzzle.
Exactly. And that's where the Yellingstones come in. They provide some tantalizing clues,
Hmm.
but they also raise more questions than answers.
Okay, let's talk about these stones. You mentioned rune stones earlier. For those of us who aren't Viking historians, can you explain what they are?
Imagine a large, imposing stone, often standing several feet tall. Now picture intricate carvings covering its surface. Those are runes, the writing system used by the Vikings. These rune stones were used for all sorts of purposes, to commemorate the dead, boast about achievements, even mark territory.
So they're like historical snapshots, giving us glimpses into the lives and beliefs of the Vikings. What makes the Jelling stones so special?
The Yellingstones are unique for a few reasons. First, they're directly connected to these key figures, Gorm, Thyra, and Harold. Second, they might be telling us a story that goes beyond a simple commemoration.
Okay.
And third, they're incredibly rare. Out of the 277 Viking-era runestones found in Denmark,
Wow.
only 12 were created to commemorate women, and 2 of those 12 are dedicated to Thyra.
Wow, only 12 for women, that's a tiny percentage. And 2 of them for the same woman. That really makes you wonder, what was so special about Thyra? Was she that influential?
It's certainly possible. And there's another intriguing detail. Runestones commissioned by kings were incredibly rare, only 3 known examples.
Oh, wow.
And guess what? Harold Bluetooth created one of them.
Hold on. So we've got these rune stones, one supposedly from King Gorm for his wife Thyra, and another from their son Harold commemorating both of them. What are we supposed to make of that?
Well, some historians believe that the runestone attributed to Gorm, the one that calls Thyra Denmark's adornment, might have actually been created by Harold after the larger stone he made dedicated to both his parents.
Wait a minute. Are you saying Harold might have created a rune stone and made it look like it was from his dad? Why would he do that?
That's where things get really interesting. Remember, this was a newly unified kingdom, power was still up for grabs, and Harold's claim to the throne might not have been completely secure.
I'm starting to see where this is going. Was he trying to solidify his position by emphasizing his parents' importance and his connection to them?
Exactly. By creating this rune stone that linked him directly to Gorm and Thyra, he was essentially saying, look, I'm the rightful heir. I come from a powerful lineage. My claim to the throne is undeniable.
That's pretty clever, actually.
Mm.
But how can we be sure that this is what happened? Is there any evidence to support this theory?
There is. If you look closely at the runestone attributed to Gorm, you'll notice that it uses word dividers. A linguistic practice that wasn't common during Gorm's time. It suggests that the stone might have been created later, perhaps even by Harold himself.
So it's like finding a document that claims to be from the 1600s,
Right.
but uses modern spelling and grammar. You'd immediately be suspicious.
Precisely. And this linguistic detail adds another layer of intrigue to the story of the Yellingstones.
Okay, so we've got this potential case of historical revisionism, a king possibly manipulating the past to secure his power. But what about Thyra? Where does she fit into all of this?
Thyra's role is crucial, and it might be even more complex than we initially thought. Remember that morning gift we talked about? Well, it likely came with significant land holdings and influence, making Thyra a powerful figure in her own right.
So she wasn't just a king's wife.
No.
She had her own power base, her own assets.
Exactly. And some historians speculate that she might have even outlived Gorm and potentially remarried.
Oh, wow.
Which could have further complicated matters of inheritance.
Wow, so now we're talking about potential stepfamilies, blended lineages, and even more competition for power.
And that's where those other runestones mentioning a Thyra come into play. What if they belong to the family she married into after Gorm?
Okay, this is getting really interesting. So we have Harold potentially worried about another family claiming Denmark through Thyra's lineage.
Right.
And to solidify his own claim, he creates this rune stone, linking himself directly to his parents and cutting out any potential rivals.
You've got it. And it all ties back to those Yellingstones, these silent witnesses to a power struggle that played out over 1,000 years ago.
It really is like something out of a TV show,
Mm-hmm.
all these shifting alliances and power plays. But let's get back to the stones themselves. We've talked about their potential significance, but what do they actually look like? What kind of details can we glean from them?
Well, there are two main runestones at Jelling, plus that third unrelated one we mentioned, the one attributed to King Gorm, is the smaller of the two. It features 3 vertical lines of runes on the front, one on the back, and those intertwined snakes we talked about.
And it's the inscription on this stone that calls Thyra Denmark's adornment, which you said might actually be referring to Gorm.
Right, and adding to the mysteries, we don't even know the original location of this stone. It was moved several times over the centuries, even used as a seat outside the church at one point.
So it's been a bit of a nomad. What about the larger Herald stone? That's one with the image of Christ, right?
That's the one. It's quite impressive, standing over 8 feet tall with 3 sides covered in runes and carvings. And that image of Christ is thought to be the first one in Scandinavia.
That must have been quite a statement at the time, visually marking this transition to Christianity. And unlike the Gorm stone, we actually know where this one originally stood.
We do. It's still in its original location, standing right between those 2 large burial mounds, which are thought to contain the remains of Gorm and Thyra.
You know, when you think about it, the placement of this stone could be another piece of Harold's potential power play. He sets up these grand monuments to his parents in this prominent location, right in the heart of what was becoming a unified Denmark.
Absolutely. It's a very deliberate act. He's not just honoring his parents. He's establishing a visual representation of his lineage, his connection to these powerful figures.
It's like he's saying, this is where the royal family is buried, this is the seat of power, and I am the rightful heir.
Exactly. And remember, those burial mounds themselves would have been incredibly impressive structures visible for miles around. The herald stones standing between them would have further amplified that message of power and authority.
And to make things even more interesting, they found a third rune stone at Jelling in the 1960s.
Yes, but that one seems to be from the same era, but unrelated to Gorm Thyra or Harold, which just goes to show you how rich this site is in terms of history and archaeological significance.
It's like peeling back layers of time with each new discovery. So if we entertain this idea that Harold was using these rune stones as tools to shape a narrative, what message was he trying to convey?
I think he was aiming to establish a clear line of succession to legitimize his claim to the throne by emphasizing his parents' importance and his connection to them. He was essentially saying, look at my powerful parents. I am their rightful heir, and I will continue their legacy.
And that message would have been particularly crucial in a time of transition and upheaval. Denmark was still finding its footing as a unified kingdom, and anxieties around inheritance and power would have been high.
Absolutely. Projecting an image of stability and continuity would have been crucial for any ruler seeking to consolidate power, and these rune stones, these grand public statements, would have been a powerful way to do just that.
It's incredible how these stones can be read on so many different levels. Historical records, religious symbols, and political tools all rolled into one.
They remind us that history is rarely simple or straightforward. There are always multiple perspectives, competing narratives, and layers of meaning to uncover.
Which brings us back to that big question, did Harold actually rewrite history, or are we simply projecting our own interpretations onto these stones?
It's a question that historians continue to debate. We may never have a definitive answer, but that's part of what makes this so intriguing. We have to weigh the evidence, consider the context, and draw our own conclusions.
And the debate will likely continue, especially with the ongoing excavations at Jelling.
Oh, absolutely. Every new discovery has the potential to shift our understanding. We've already seen that with the finding of Gorm's remains.
Right. I remember you mentioned this earlier. They found an empty tomb in the burial mound, initially thought to be Gorm's, but it turns out Harold had moved his father to a Christian burial site.
Exactly. It really highlights how fluid our understanding of the past can be, and who knows what else they might find. There could be another runestone buried somewhere, a hidden chamber, a forgotten artifact.
You officially piqued my curiosity. I need to see this place for myself. You mentioned it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
It is, and it's definitely worth a visit. It's not just about the stones themselves. You can really get a sense of the landscape, the scale of those burial mounds, the presence of the church. It's a very powerful experience to stand in that place knowing that you're walking in the footsteps of Vikings.
You sold me. It's going on the bucket list. But for now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how this all connects to something we use every day. Bluetooth technology. It seems almost too good to be true, this link between a Viking king and our wireless devices.
It's a story that often surprises people. Back in 1996, a team of engineers was working on developing this new wireless communication technology.
And they needed a catchy name. Enter Harold Bluetooth, the king
Right.
who united Denmark.
Precisely, they saw a parallel between Harold uniting the various factions of Denmark and their technology's aim of uniting different devices.
It's a brilliant marketing move,
Right.
really tapping into history, creating a story, giving people something to connect with.
And it worked. Bluetooth was initially just a code name, but it stuck partly due to trademark issues with their other name options.
So it was a bit of a happy accident, a temporary name that became a global phenomenon, and that logo, that bind rune combining Harold's initials, it's like a secret code from the past, hidden in plain sight.
It's a reminder that history is all around us, even in the most unexpected places. It's woven into the fabric of our lives sometimes in ways we don't even realize.
And it makes you think, what other connections are we missing? What other stories are waiting to be uncovered?
That's what makes history so fascinating. It's a constant process of discovery, interpretation, and reinterpretation.
And who knows what future excavations at Jelling might reveal. They could completely change our understanding of Gorm, Thyra, and Harold all over again.
Absolutely, and that's the beauty of it. We're always learning, always uncovering new pieces of the puzzle.
This has been an incredible journey so far. But before we wrap up our deep dive into the Yelling Stones, I want to take a step back and think about what this all means on a larger scale.
I agree. Let's delve into the broader implications of what we've learned and what it can teach us about the nature of history itself.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Kings, queens, rune stones, potential historical revisionism, and even a connection to modern technology.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these tangible objects from the past, these Yelling stones,
Right.
can spark such a wide-ranging conversation.
It really highlights how interconnected history is
Hmm.
and how objects can serve as portals to deeper understandings, not just of the past, but of ourselves and the world around us.
You know, one thing that's really stuck with me is this idea that history is constantly being reinterpreted,
Uh-huh.
challenged,
Yeah.
and sometimes even rewritten.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you realize how much of what we know about the past is actually based on interpretation.
Absolutely. And it raises important questions about whose story is being told, whose voices are missing, and what agendas might be shaping those narratives.
The Yelling Stones are a perfect example. For centuries, the story was pretty straightforward. Gorm was the king, Thyra was the queen, Harold converted Denmark to Christianity.
Right.
But as we've seen, there's so much more to it than that.
And it makes you wonder what other historical narratives are waiting to be challenged, what assumptions we're clinging to, and what alternative perspectives might be out there.
It's a reminder to be critical thinkers, to question what we think we know and be open to different interpretations.
I think that's one of the key takeaways from this deep dive. History isn't static. It's a living, breathing thing that's constantly evolving as new evidence emerges and new perspectives come to light.
We started this episode talking about these physical objects, these runestones, but we've ended up in a conversation about the nature of history itself. It's fascinating how these things are all connected.
And it underscores the importance of tangible artifacts. Objects like the Yelling stones can spark our curiosity and lead us down paths of inquiry we never expected. They remind us that history is not just a collection of dates and names. It's a story filled with drama, intrigue, and complexity.
It's a story that's still being written, and we're all a part of it.
Absolutely. Every choice we make, every action we take shapes the world around us. And in a way, we're all leaving behind our own runestones, traces of our existence that future generations might one day try to decipher.
That's a pretty profound thought. So as we wrap up, I want to ask you, the listener, what are you taking away from this deep dive? What aspects of the Yellingstone story resonated with you the most?
Perhaps it sparked a desire to learn more about Viking history, to question those historical narratives that have always been presented as fact, or maybe even to plan a trip to Denmark to see the Yellingstones for yourself.
Whatever it is, we hope this deep dive has left you with a sense of wonder and a thirst for more knowledge.
Because ultimately, history is about understanding ourselves and the world around us. It's about connecting with the past to illuminate the present and shape the future.
And that's what we're all about here at the Deep Dive. We take those deep dives into the past, present, and future, uncovering those hidden connections and sparking those aha moments.
So until next time, keep those questions coming, keep exploring, and never stop challenging the stories you're told.
And hey, next time you connect your phone to your car using Bluetooth, take a moment to think about King Harold Bluetooth and those incredible Yelling stones. A little piece of Viking history right there in your pocket.